Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country Homestead. God is good all the time. And today in part 4 of our Crochet Series 101, I'm going to go over a little bit more on pattern reading and show you a few special stitches that you're going to need to know. When I first got started in crocheting, my main thing was to crochet Afghans. And right here, this Afghan is one of the many Afghans I've made, as well as this one. And then, so this is where I got that pattern book from, and that's linked below, our pattern from. And then this one is linked below. Excellent Afghan books if you like making Afghan. This type of Afghan is going to have some pattern stitches, and I went over that a little bit before. So right here in this box, and this is kind of typical, you'll see a stitch guide, and it will explain different stitches. Now, you're going to have a lot of patterns are going to have clusters. You can't, and all clusters are going to be different according to the pattern. So you've got to really read through this cluster stitch guide before you get started on the project itself. So for example, this one says yarn over twice, insert hook in chain 1 space indicated, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2 loops on the hook twice. See, this part is in parentheses. And so that means you're going to do that part 2 times. Repeat from star once more, yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on hook. So yarn over twice. I'm going to insert the hook. Oops, I'm looking at the wrong cluster. Okay, the cluster. Insert hook in chain 1 space. Well, this is going to be a single crochet. So I yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through 2 loops on hook. Yarn, and then you do that twice. So I got to yarn over and draw through 2 loops. Now I'm going to do this again from the start of the parentheses, or the star. So that's yarn over twice, insert into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So that's a pretty simple cluster right there. So on a hat like this, so I've got some double crochet clusters in here, and that looks like this. It's just a double crochet cluster, so I don't need to yarn over twice. I yarn over, insert it in whatever stitch I'm going to be putting the cluster in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. This is, and then I'm going to do it again, into the stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and now I'm going to do it one more time. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, and now to complete the cluster, I'm going to draw through all 4 of these. And now what I have right there is that's what that cluster looks like, and that will equal 1 stitch. Now a cluster can have as many of these little yarn over things, pulling up a loop, as you want. The more you do, the more loops at the end you're going to have to draw through on your hook. So let me see, I think that's about 4 and 5. The more you have, the puffier that stitch is going to be, that cluster. And that's basically, so you can see it's really kind of puffy. Now that's 5. So that's more of a popcorn kind of stitch, I think it's called. The more of those yarn over, draw through 2, insert into the stitch, yarn over, draw through 2 that you have before you finally pull through the last several loops, of course the dogs have to come in here and play, the puffier that stitch will be, the fatter it will be, but it will still only equal 1 stitch at the end. Well, these mitts that go with this set, I'll put one on. All right, there's this part here that almost looks like a rib knitting. This is when you work in the back loop only. of a single crochet, back and forth. And so what it does is it makes this ridge look, which for something like this, not only gives it a nice look, but gives it more stretch for pulling over the hand. So this is a really great stitch to have around something like this, or around even the collar of a sweater, like I made little doggy sweaters. When I showed you the single crochet before, I worked into both loops. So I worked under both of these here. So it would look like that. Let me get it a little bit closer. Okay, but instead of doing that, you're going to insert into this back loop, the one that's farthest away from you, not the front loop. You can do front loop ones too. That's going to give you a different loop look. I'm going to insert into the back loop, and I'm going to work all the way across. This is a really important stitch to know, because if you start making baby booties and you want that solid line between the sole, or any kind of booties, between the sole and then where the body of the slipper or whatever starts, this will make a ridge. So let's just say I'm making a slipper out of that, then that'll make a nice little ridge and give you an edge there. Where if you don't do that, you're not going to have that. So there's several reasons why you want to be able to know how to do that back loop only. And so you can see how that looks right there. Anyway, that stitch I just showed you, that's what's going on right here. And again, right here. Just to make a ridge. And again here, and then again right here. Every time you see that kind of line like that, that's working in a back loop only. Okay, so you can see the uses here. Now learning how to increase is another thing. And that's what you need to do to be able to do this, or to decrease. Increase when you're going around here to get it bigger and bigger. Decrease as you're coming in to draw this toe in. There's several reasons why you need to know how to increase and decrease. And so I'm going to show you that right now, because the decrease is the increase is used right here to make this thumb gusset. I get to this part, I get up to this point, I'm going to increase by 2 stitches for each row. And you know, it'll increase here, and that's what makes this bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when I get to the top, I just skip all these stitches, and that's what makes that hole. These are all the extra stitches I added going up, and then you just skip across. How I increase, typically an increase means you're only going to add one extra stitch to the stitch below. So whenever you see INC, that means increase. So I'm going to go 1, 2 in this stitch, and then it should tell you how many more stitches to go before you do another increase. So let's say I'll do 3 stitches, and now I'm going to increase again. It's rare that you will increase more than 1 stitch in each stitch, but it can happen. You can come across that, but typically it's only going to be 2 per 1 when you do an increase. Now, when you need to decrease again, what you do is you yarn over, you go into your stitch, you yarn over, pull up a loop, then you go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then draw through the 3. And now you've taken these 2 stitches and decreased them to 1. And decrease is typically written as DCS, just like increase is INC. That's typically how you're going to see it written. And so again, to make something like this, to make the hobs that I showed you, to make slippers, you need to know how to decrease and increase. And the same thing for this here. To make all these little corners, these aren't single crochets, these are double crochets, but it works the same way. Now on these corners, you do more than 1 increase. You do several stitches in that 1. And then when you come back, you're going to do a decrease to get it to bend the other way. Again, I recommend these books if you're wanting to make Afghans. There's just a lot. I love this one. I made this one years ago for a family member. I made this one. I still have this one, actually. I didn't even think I'd take a picture of it, but I made it in darker colors. I didn't use those, but I love this because this is actually using granny squares, and putting it together in such a way that it looks like a quilt. And it even has kind of a puffy effect by the way you stitch them together. So really, really great Afghan book. This was the very, very first, and I'm glad I still have this one. It's become a dog blanket now, but it's the very first project I made. After I learned all the basics from the book, I'll link to I don't have that book anymore, but the How to Crochet book is it also teaches you how to read patterns, so I'm going to link to that below. And this pattern was in that book. And so this was my very first project, and it was making an Afghan. It's more of a lap size one you throw over, the end of the couch. Okay, so I rambled enough, and thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.